Alright, how's it going, guys? Thanks for watching. Welcome to the channel. If you haven't watched the other videos, this is the 250F hybrid build. I just figured I'd make a short video. We're going to go ahead and check the valves, adjust them if we need to. Show you guys a problem we had when we bought the dirt bike engine for this. But if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, like the video, hit that notification bell to see some more. Got more videos planned on the way, but for now, let's go ahead and I'll move the camera and let's get into this. Alright guys, so the first thing we got to do, gas tank's already unbolted, but I got to take the fuel line off here, get this thing out of the way. Fuel shut off, but I'm sure we're still going to leak some out. Not bad. Let's get this vacuum line off there. Got this vacuum line in the way. Which has to come off anyways. So there's that vacuum line we put on the other video. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. And there we go. Just gonna set this out of the way. Alright, so we'll get this other breather line off of here. I don't know if you see what I'm going to point you down. So we got the breather line here. That goes their oil tank. Get that out of the way. Spark plug coil. Just set that out of the way. And this is another thing. This is off a different year dirt bike. So this is the coil on plug I swapped it over to. That way I didn't have to have a coil bolted on the side. I think this is off of 2006 or so YFZ 250. But I just wired it up instead of the coil. Works great. So next thing, I'm going to take this valve cover off. If you guys don't know, you use the longest extension you have for everything. These short extensions are useless. There we go. Get it there out of the way. So once I get this valve cover off, I kind of want to explain a problem, and you're not going to be able to see anything because hopefully it's fixed, or I know it was fixed at one time. So I'm going to pop this off. Alright, valve cover. Put my bolts in there. A lot of paper towels. Alright, anyways. So, the intake cam, when we bought this engine, it appears somebody torqued the bolts down on the cam tower too tight. So this cam wouldn't spin at all. Usually, they're nice and loose and you can actually rock it just by hand. The center, this is a 3-valve head. The center support or cam lobe right here, it was so galled up that it left aluminum on the old cams. So these are actually stage 2 hot cams that I bought off eBay as a set. Super cheap. They're off a 2014 YFZ 250. So this engine is actually an 02 YFZ 250. We've got 2014 cams in here, and we've got the 2006 coil on it, and that's about it. Everything else is basically factory. But that's one difference. So this thing ran like shit. I had to take this in and torque it down, and I actually had to machine this side. I honed it, or I bored this down, and then I honed it down to 1 thou tolerance on the cam size, and it's worked perfect ever since. So that's one reason, now that we've had a few rides on it, I want to make sure that our valves are still in spec. We don't have any problems or anything. I'm just trying to be cautious with this thing because we don't want to burn it up, especially if we're out somewhere. But physically looking in here and seeing oil, this is the first time I've had it open. So seeing oil up here, I'm happy about. This thing's been sitting for a while, so that's about how much I would hope or expect to see. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get these plugs out of the engine, and I'll get it top dead center, and then we'll get my feeler gauges out and we'll check the valve clearances, and then we'll go from there. I'll document them, and if we got to adjust, we'll adjust them. But I got to find a damn paper towel first. Alright, paper towel. Alright, so now I'm going to pull the plugs out of the side of the engine right here to see my timing mark and turn the crank. I'll just go ahead and say, anybody that knows the 4-stroke engines, your head and your valves. Take care of your head and your valves, and the engines are usually pretty damn reliable, but keep those valves in tolerance and you're usually good. And your filter clean. Another thing, if you don't know, you always make sure you filter your oil before you reuse it. Don't ever put dirty oil back in. Filter that oil before you put it back in. If that's what you like to do. Man, those have been a while. This is actually the first time I've had these out since we finished this engine and rode it. Plenty of oil down here. We're actually going to do an oil change on this anyways. One trip to the dunes and you're due for an oil change for sure. Alright, let's go. I believe that's a 13 or so. Probably a 14. 14. So now I gotta turn the flywheel until I get to my timing mark. Right there. So, let's see if you guys can see this. Alright. So, get your marks down here. There's a mark in here. I know this probably can't see it right now, but get your timing mark. And then the dots on the cam up here, take this off. So we got, there's a dot here, here, and there. And then we got a little dot here, here, and that's it. So if you want to verify that you're on the right stroke, you can just look down at your cams actually and verify where they're pointed. So they should be away from each other like that. So your exhaust is pointed forward and that one intake is pointed backwards. So that should be top dead center compression stroke. So now that's where we got to go get our feeler gauges, and we'll measure all of our gaps from there, and then we'll go from there. So one thing I like to do, get yourself some paper, and I like to just draw a rough outline so I know that there's 3 valves on intake, 2 on the exhaust, and then I'll write the number that I get when I measure these. So I'll write the number I get for clearance, and then you just math it out and you can tell what size valve shim they need replaced with. Or if I have to take anything out, I'll use this to set my shims on, and that way I keep track of everything and where it goes. It just helps make things easier. So I'm just going to set this back here. Another thing, for this engine I bought these, and they are the tapered feeler gauges, and this 5 valve head is so tight to try to get these suckers in that the taper really helps. And I believe on this the intake should be 4 to 7 thousandths. I believe that it's probably on the tall side, like maybe we need to close them up a bit. So like that 4 slips in absolutely no problem. Again, once you get it close, so that one, I can feel the 4 goes in and there's a little bit of drag. So that tells me it's on the tight lower side of the tolerance, which is exactly what I want. I want them to have maximum lift, low side of tolerance so they're not chattering. This middle one, that's slipping right through there. So that one's really loose. Same with that first one. That one's really loose, so I need to go bigger. So one thing, like I said, that first one, I'm gonna call that a 4. 4 drags, it's kind of tight to get in there, so that's a 4th thou shim. Or a 4th thou clearance. Those other 2 are loose enough, I'll jump right up to 8 thou. So like that first one, 8 thou goes in, that's not good. That second one, it does not go in. So we'll try a 6 in that middle one. So 6 won't go in that middle one. So we'll try a 5. Feels like a 5 will. So 5 slips in, a 6 wouldn't go. So that's a 5 thou clearance, which is right in range. So write that down, 0.005. So those 2 valves are good. Now we got to figure out how much we got on that other one. So I'm just gonna keep stepping it up. And this is just a process, like you gotta do it. That 8 was real loose. Obviously not too loose though, because a 9 will not even try to go in. So that one would be an 1/8 thou clearance. So there's all of my numbers for the intake side. Exhaust side, I don't remember what the tolerance is supposed to be, but I'm gonna go ahead and measure and we'll figure it out. We do have a book. Always go by the book. So 8 won't go. 8 won't go. So we don't have too big of a gap on the exhaust side. And honestly, it's usually your intake side that wears out first. So I just jump down to a 5 here. 5 goes. 5 goes. So I'm pretty sure that's right in the range. I think it's like 5 to 8 on the exhaust. Not 100%. I'll check in the book though. So 5 goes. 6 got slight drag. 6 has slight drag. 7 I cannot get to go. Or 7 went on that side. So I'd call this one 6, and an 8 wouldn't go on either of them. 6 and 7. Alright, so easy enough. Now we have all of our numbers. I gotta look in the book and see exactly what our tolerance is. Take the cam chain tensioner off, and then that'll loosen up my chain. I can turn the sprockets, take the cam towers off. And if you guys don't know, to figure out, all the shims are metric, so millimeters, and I measure in thousandths. If you don't know, transfer metric to inches, multiply or divide 25.4, and that gives you the difference, or transfers it over a millimeter to inches, back and forth, whatever. But just something to remember. It helps a lot on these. Alright guys, so I went ahead and I took the cam chain tensioner off. Just setting that back here. So now our cams are loose, and you can, well, I don't know if you can see, let me move you a bit. So our cams, you see how free they spin? That's what I was talking about before. They wouldn't move like that. Well, I cracked the cam tower bolts loose. They were torqued. And I already did the math on these. So after I measured it, I converted the difference over to metric. So I labeled where I need to go. These are our tolerance, so 3,009 to 5,009 is our tolerance for the intake. So the first one, it's in tolerance, but valves usually get tighter as they wear. So that one's on the bottom. If it wears at all, it's going to be underneath that 3,009. So I'm actually going to make a bigger gap on this one, so to bring that up to 5. And then this one's at 5. This one, I'm going to put a shim in it that's bigger to close the gap to get it up to 5. So 5 will be right in the mid-range of our tolerance. And I'll do the same thing up here on our exhaust side. Basically 7 to 9. We're at 7. This one's at 6, so that one's actually gap's too tight. So we're going to put a smaller shim in there to make a bigger gap, get that up to 7. So I'm going to take this apart, and that's what we're going to do real quick. So I got to get all these bolts out now. Let me make sure you can see. Again, like I said, use the longest extension you got. That way you don't want to get close to this shit you're working on. Stay away from it. You can work from across the room with all the extensions I use. And hopefully this will come off pretty easy. Yep, just like that. And then watch out for your dowel pins. You don't want to accidentally drop any of those down in your engine. And also try to keep your tools clean while you're doing this. like I said, any dirt, your head's pretty vulnerable to dirt. You don't want to be dumping it in there off your tools, your hands, or any of that shit. I say that as I just dropped tools on the ground and kept using them, so don't do what I do. Another important thing is, as you're doing these, I like to try to make sure that my chain never comes off of either of my cams. That way it stays timed and everything. But sometimes these cams are a pain in the ass to get out without taking the chain off, which it's not a big deal if it comes off. It's just one more thing to mess with. Alright, so I'm going to show this. So this is one of the cam towers that I machined. I don't know how well you can see it, but this middle surface here, this is all machined out, and it looks really good. This is one of them I was kind of worried about. You really can't even tell that it was ever messed up. This this surface on the old cam was just trashed. So I'm happy to see this in this condition, honestly. So now we just gotta lift these out if we can. And another thing is these right here, those clips. Be very careful not to drop these in your engine. And I like to try to keep these lined up exactly how they came out. So again, I'll use that paper, and that's on my intake side. And this one's on my exhaust side. So I just leave them on the paper till I put them back in. And I believe there's another one actually underneath the cam too. No, there's not. Okay, so I haven't moved the chain or anything. What I like to do to keep my position on these and just make this a little quicker is I'm going to zip tie that cam chain right to the sprocket. So that just keeps these timed together, and then I can move them around like this and leave it right there, and I can pull those out, put my new shims in there. So if I go back to, let me turn this around so it's the right way. If I turn this around, I'm X that one because we're not changing it. The one over here we are changing. I like to put a paper towel over my magnet. And the shim is actually down inside of there. And I always do these one at a time. So if I wipe this off, I can read on here that the number is a 178. And I already mathed it out. I got to go down 25.025 millimeter. So 78, we need to put a 53 in, if I have a 53. So I got my shim kit here. It's the wrong shim kit. So I need a 153. Don't have a 53, so we're gonna go a 155. And the 78 I'll put back in here with the 75s. So then this shim goes right down inside on top of the valve spring and stuff. And then the bucket is ready to go back in. So there, the exhaust side's done. So what I'll do is I'll keep this chain tight and I'll roll this all back over here now. So I'll let that sit there like that, and then now I can get to my intake side. And we actually have to bolt all this back together, torque it and everything, recheck it with our shims, and if we're off, we start the whole process over again until they're all dead on. If your math's right, then you shouldn't have to do that, but shit, I've done it a bunch of times and my math's wrong. So I'm gonna turn this off. I'll get these ones swapped and we'll go from there. Okay guys, so I just ran into an issue I want to show you. I don't know if you can see, but I pulled this shim out. Let's see here, and the numbers are worn off. So I have no idea what size that shim is. So I'm just going to show you what I do. Just get a trustworthy micrometer, okay? Measure this sucker and then convert it like I said. So I've got exactly 77 thousandths on this. So 77 thousandths is an inch, or in inches, not an inch. So 0.077 is how that's written. So I'll leave that there. Get out my handy mathulator here. So like I said, that 25.4 is what you use. So 0.077, and to go from inches to metric, you multiply. So 0.077 times 25.4 is 1.9, I don't know if you can see, 1.9558 millimeter. So that was the old shim size on that particular valve. I need to drop it 25. So I need to go from 1.95 to a 1.30, or 1.930, sorry, 1.930. So that's how you convert it over and figure it out if you don't have a size on there to go off of. I just wanted to show you guys that. So now I'll put my cams all back together, torque it all down, use a torque wrench. I'll stop the video, I'll bring it back when I'm torquing it all down. Alright guys, so now I got my torque wrench. Got it set 7 foot-pounds. That's what the book calls for. So you can take one extension off. And I'm going to do these slowly because they always make me a little bit nervous. So that one's not, I didn't let it click yet. I just want to get some pressure on all of them. So I'm going right till I can feel them just slightly start to drag. Alright, so they're all slightly dragged. Right there. And cross it. Another thing, make sure you use a torque wrench you can trust. I have a Harbor Freight one too, but I do not trust it for this low of torque. I mean, if I was doing 50 foot-pounds plus or minus 5, I wouldn't mind so much, but these all ran down here. So after I get these all torqued, I'll put the chain tensioner back on. And what I like to do is I like to turn the crank a couple revolutions to let the cam lobes push those down, push any oil gap and everything out, make sure they're actually seated fully, and then I'll measure them. Alright, so now we'll start torquing. I'm just gonna double check them all. The 7 foot-pounds is not very much. Alright, so we're all good. Back this up and turn it off. Should be done with this now. So now I have got to get my chain tensioner back on down here. This style chain tensioner, there's an arrow on it that shows which way to go up. And you gotta get a screwdriver in here to back the spring up while you do this. If you see that pulling the plunger back. If you don't do that, it latches, and when you tighten it, you'll actually stretch your cam chain. So I back it up all the way till it's tight, and then you just gotta hold it. Alright, so those are started. Now I'll run these all the way in. All right. So I put a good snug on the bolts for that. There's torque specs for those too, but I'm not gonna worry about that because they're probably, I don't know about probably, but they might be coming back out still. So I just need pressure on it to suck up all the chain. Put that spring bolt back in. Go ahead and tighten that sucker. Alright, that's all on. Now I'll cut my zip ties off. That's not right. I did something wrong. I gotta release that. I gotta release that flathead screw inside that cam chain tensioner. Make sure that'd be really bad if I didn't do that. Obviously. But now, when I do this, you see that chain go tight. There we go. Hopefully you saw that just tighten up there. Now I'll put the bolt back in. Tight. So now I'll cut my zip ties off. Alright, so now like I said, I'm going to spin this engine a couple times and let it push all that down. Feels good. Should be be right about back to top dead center. Right there. So all my marks are lined up. So now I'll just remeasure, make sure everything we did is right. So my goal is to get to 5 thou on the intake, so I'm just gonna start with my 5 thou. Five thou goes now. Before it was 4. 5 thou. So I went way too much on all of them. So it looks like what I did was I moved my decimal point. I just gotta go back and redo it. So I'm gonna pull these all back off and remath this out and do it again. So I'll bring it back here in a few minutes. I'm gonna have this done in like 5 seconds. Watch. Alright guys, so I finally got this. It's only been like the longest 10 seconds ever. I had to fight it for a while. So the shim kit only comes in 0.05 increments of shims. Well, 1,000th is half that basically. So for me to get in the range I was trying to get to, I kept jumping back and forth between sizes, and I ended up having to settle for right on the top range instead of the middle range like I was trying to get. But it's all right now. It's all bolted, torqued. I'm gonna go ahead and throw the valve cover back on. The valve cover, I'm gonna put the side caps in real quick. I'm just gonna wait on the chain tensioner. It's freaking late. I got a bedtime. I gotta work tomorrow. But I wanna get this video done. Just kind of show you guys what goes into it. It's late and I'm tired, but I do enjoy doing this stuff. Little math on an engine's kind of fun for me. The bad thing is I just started with this one. I got all those over there to still do, but that's all right. After this is all put back together, I'm gonna do another video, so keep watching. Subscribe to the channel to see more. As soon as we get some nice weather, my plan is to hook the tuner up from my other video, and we're just gonna take this thing and kind of test ride it down the road. I've never really did just a ride video on this since we've had it done. So I'm gonna do a test ride down the road, kind of show you guys what it can do, and I'm gonna hook that tuner up and we'll just see how it's running as far as fuel and carb issues. I mean, it runs good, but I just want to make sure it's running its best, and I'll show you guys how we do that. So that'll be in another video. But I'm gonna wrap this up, torque this down. Until then, see you guys later. Stay tuned for the next video. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notifications if you want to see more, and thanks for watching. See ya.